mom came into the room and she's like, look at my phone. And then I couldn't see it, so I had to look at mine. I'm like, oh.
I can't bet against Tom Brady. I have the Bucks winning 31-27 and Tom Brady going to his 10th championship.
Yeah, and I really think the Clippers' chance to win the championship was last year. And they were up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets.
Chris Paul is one of the most underrated players of all time. He's been the best player wherever he goes, and that includes with the Rockets.
You said you can't bet against Tom Brady, and as a Cowboys fan and what I just did last weekend, I am not going to bet against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I mean, that's all I can really say. There's two of the top 5 players in the league, and they are very, very good.
Hello, I'm Taylor Hearn, and you listen to The Outsiders' Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another NBA Opinions of the Week as we prepare for the finals. Once again, this is not our finals prediction and finals preview, but part of the preview as it's a top 10 players in the NBA finals. And this one was a little bit tricky to make for me, filling out this entire top 10, Austin. And that's, of course, the man I'll be doing that with today.
Yeah, this is definitely a little bit tougher than I thought. And this is playoffs matter for this. So how a player plays in the playoffs impacts my decision making a lot here. It's not just who would be the best for an 82-game season. This is who's going to be best during this series for each team. It's a pretty even mix of players, but it is, I think, indicative of how this series will be played. A lot of these players will have to have big games, big shots, big moments for them to end up winning this series for their respective team.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a fun series, but let's go right into number 10. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, 10. There's a lot of players I feel like that are good. Neither of these teams has a lot of very subpar players, at least in rotation. There's definitely guys like THA that may have lost their spot, or some other guys that may not be playing for either team. But my number 10 is Al Horford. Horford probably won't start this series because KP should be back by the time that this series starts. But Horford's just an amazing player. His defense, his shooting especially, ever since he went to Boston, Kevin, this second time around, he's been one of the best big man shooters in the league. This year, he shot 41.9% from three. Last year, 44.6%. If you just look at the playoffs this year, he's not shooting the best. But from two, he's leading all the playoffs in 2-point percentage at 74%. He's averaging 10 and 7 right now in the playoffs while still contributing a lot on the defensive side of the ball. He, I think, deserves to be in the top 10.
Yeah, he's in the top 10 for me, and he's a little bit higher than you. My 10 is Daniel Gafford. I think he is a great rebounder, and he's a great defensive presence for the Mavericks. He is instrumental for the Mavericks and what they are able to do at center now. But he does have some liabilities. There were some series where he would play less, but he's still a top 10 player in the finals.
Yeah, I could see that argument. Who's your number 9?
My number 9 is PJ Washington. I value his defense, and he can score at times. He kind of struggled a little bit in the Timberwolves series. He was great in the OKC series, but to me, I love his defense and what he brings, but sometimes he can be inconsistent on the offensive side.
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely can.
Who is your 9?
So this is, I wanted to go, I was Gafford or PJ. I was only going to have one of them in, and I ended up going with Gafford. I'm worried about the injuries that have happened to Derek Lively. Like if he were to get hit again, I'm not totally certain that he would be able to play at the level that he was playing at earlier in the playoffs. And then Gafford also had an amazing series last series. He was a star player at times, at least on the defensive side of the ball, because he was averaging so many blocks. He ended up having 13 blocks in the Minnesota series in only 5 games, which is remarkable. And he shoots uber efficiently. just like Lively does, but I do still believe that Gafford is the better of the two defensively. Gafford during these playoffs is averaging, let me just find it. He's averaging 1.8 blocks per game, which is that is pretty remarkable for a player that doesn't play as much as you would probably assume a player who averages 2 blocks would. And then you have Lively, who's still good, but only averaging 1.2 blocks while averaging less points. And he's averaging a little bit more rebounds, but he's shooting worse from free throw. They're really close, really comparable. I just like Gafford a little bit more. Washington also could be here, like you mentioned. The problem is when Washington is off, he's off. But when he's on, he can be on. He can average 20 for a 4-game stretch, just like he did against the Thunder. But I'm just not that confident that is what's going to happen in this series because the Celtics are so deep.
That's a really good point. Who do you have at 8?
My number 8 is Derek Jones Jr., one of the most underrated players coming into the season, a player that when the Mavs picked him up, I was really happy for him and for the Mavericks. He's been extremely, extremely good during these playoffs, averaging 49.2% from the field, 39.6% from 3, 72% from the line, while averaging 1.1 blocks per game. So we go Library averaging 1.2 blocks per game. Derek Jones Jr. is averaging 1.1. He's almost averaging 10 points per game at 9.8. He's a big part of this team. And the main reason why I have him at 8, above guys like PJ Washington, Gafford, Derek Lively, any other bench guy for the Mavs, is who he will be guarding. And that is either Tatum or Jaylen Brown, depending on who Jason Kidd and that coaching staff decides that he needs to guard. It'll probably be Tatum. I believe it'll be Tatum. And when it is Tatum, that's going to be a big task. And how he performs on the defensive side of the ball will definitely impact this series greatly. While I'm not certain that he's necessarily a better player than PJ Washington, his impact will be felt greater this series. And I think if he shows out, he could be a big reason why the Mavs end up winning this series if they do.
Yeah, Derek Jones Jr. was a tough cut for me. He has been incredible. And like you said, he is going to guard Tatum or one of the top 2 players. He, I believe, guarded Anthony Edwards, guarded Shea, and I believe guarded Paul Harden. So he has guarded the top player for every team throughout this entire series. I love his ability to get to the basket, and I love his agility with the lobs. And that's something number 8 shares for me. You and I have kind of disagreed with this ever since like Daniel Gafford came to the Mavs. I really like Derek Lively, and I think he's played incredible. So that's why he's my 8. I like him a little bit more offensively than Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively has just been incredible.
What do you like more about him offensively?
I think I love what he can do when Luka gets double teamed and Luka can pass the ball to Derek Lively and he can make a quick decision. To me, Gafford's not as comfortable doing that yet.
I can agree that Lively's a little bit better passing. The difference is not crazy. Again, Lively only averages 1.6 assists per game during the playoffs. The only thing I'll give you is that Lively's a little bit better rebounding the ball, but I think he's worse on defense, guarding players, and worse offensively finishing around the rim. I know Lively just had a great series, not missing a single shot, but Gafford's definitely better at hitting tough layups than Lively is, in my opinion. I mean, we saw that in the Timberwolves series whenever he hit that crazy layup falling to the ground. Yeah. I know you probably saw a highlight of that if you didn't get to see the game.
I think I did see that.
Maybe it was game 2.
It was game 2. Yeah, I saw game 2. I missed game 3 through 5.
Okay, so yeah, it was a crazy play by Gafford. I think Gafford is a little bit more clean around the edges. I'll give you playmaking with Lively and maybe a little bit on rebounding, but I do think still that Gafford's the better player.
Yeah, so that's our big disagreement right now in Horford. But I'll go into my 7. I have Kristaps. He is a great player. I doubt it. I haven't seen him in the playoffs. I'm really basing his playoff performance with what he did with the Mavs. And that's I'm wondering what he's gonna be like coming off the injury. So that's my view of Kristaps at 7.
Well, I do have Kristaps at 7. We agree on that. I'm
Okay.
really interested to see who you don't have that I have. Because I know you have Horford. And there's a couple guys here that I feel like must be. We'll see. We
Okay.
will see. I'm extremely intrigued. Kristaps, like I said, is my 7. And it's mainly because of injury concerns. Kristaps has been remarkable over the past 2 seasons, staying healthy even during the regular season. He basically played the same amount of games as Kyrie this past year. The problem was when playoffs happened. I think it's partially because they didn't want to get him hurt and they trusted their team that they could beat these other guys. He'll be back. He averaged 20 points per game this year on 52, 38, 86 shooting while averaging 20 and 7. He's still great defensively, averaging 1.9 blocks per game. That's his highest since the Mavs in 2020 when he also played 57 games. I think he'll be fine. I don't think his injury is all that much to worry about, and I think he'll play well in this series.
Okay. And then I have, I'll just go into my 6. I have Al Horford at 6. I like him a little bit more defensively than Kristaps, and I really like his veteran presence. And he played amazing 2 years ago against the Warriors, if I'm right about in the finals.
Yeah, you are right about that. It's just that Al Horford is a lot less versatile regarding offensive options. His options are either layup or dunk, and then a 3-pointer. Now, he is, like I said, a remarkable 3-point shooter. Since he's been with the team, he shot 39% in the Eastern Conference Final. He shot 40% in the first round against Miami. He's a great shooter. And back into the finals against Golden State, 62.5%. He's a great shooter. The problem is Kristaps is an actual diverse weapon, and I will not be shocked if Kristaps has a 30-point game in the finals. That wouldn't shock me. That would, in fact, shock me, though, with Horford. And while I do think that Horford's a more versatile defender than KP, I don't think it makes up for what KP can bring you offensively. But I'll go into my number 6 is Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday is a remarkable defensive player and force. I know he does not average 19 points per game like he did last year for a Bucks team that only lost in the first round. But this year, with the Celtics, he's shooting remarkably. 48% during the regular season from the field, 42.9% from 3. And during the playoffs, he's continued that great stretch. 49% from the field and 39.7% from 3, while averaging 13, 6, and 5. His presence, his ability to guard Kyrie Irving in this series will make or break this series. The Mavs desperately need Kyrie to play very well. Luka and no player in this league at this point can do it by themselves. And Jrue Holiday in this matchup will be huge. So he's my number 6. He has a lot of experience. He's made 6 all-defensive teams now after making the second team all-defense this year. He's a great player, and his impact will be felt immensely on this series.
Yeah, he's a great player. Who's your 5?
My 5 is a player that I have a friend who hasn't been on this channel, but he does not necessarily like this player all that much, and that's Derek White. Derek White averaged 15, 4, and 5 this year while shooting 46% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. And during the playoffs, he slowed down a little bit, but still averaging 47% from the field, 41% from 3, 89% from the line, while averaging 18, 4, and 5. He's a great player. And I am this is the player that I think could make or break the series for the Celtics because they just have so many bodies. He will probably be the one, him or Jaylen Brown will probably be the ones guarding Luka, and it just depends on how it will go. But he's made 2 all defensive teams both of the last 2 years. He was 8th in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. Just a remarkable player and a player that I think doesn't get enough love sometimes, but again, these playoffs averaging 18, 4, and 5, his impact is immense.
It looks like he is not getting much love for me because he is not on my top 10. I did think about Derek White, but I just valued all the other players on this list more than him. But yeah, no, he is a great player. But yeah, and he'll definitely have a key part in this series. I'm very interested to see what he does. My 5 is Jason Tatum. Given the playoff performances, I just don't really believe in Jason Tatum right now. I don't think he is the best player on the Celtics team right now. He has that ability. It's just we haven't seen him do that. So I placed him low on this list because I just can't trust him in those moments. Like I'm just thinking of that three that he could have hit and would have been like, okay, he came in that big moment. It's just he hasn't stepped up when a player needs to step up. So that's why he's my 5.
Who'd you say was your 5 again?
Jason Tatum.
Wow, that's remarkable. Who do you have high? I am trying to figure it out. Who
I have
am I
2
missing?
other Celtics players higher. Like,
Oh, I guess you have Drew, I guess. But okay. My number 4 is Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, who won Eastern Finals Player of the Year. He's had a great playoffs, but he's still the Robin in this Batman scenario. He's averaging 25 points per game in these playoffs, which is extremely good. And he's been a great player throughout multiple of these series. But he's still not Tatum. Tatum is still the cog that runs it all. Brown will have a big defensive responsibility if he is on Luka. I think Derek White will be on Luka at least to start. We'll see how it all turns out. But Jaylen Brown, great player. He was second team All NBA last year. He did not make an All NBA team this year, but he's still had a great playoffs this far, and he will be a huge part of this team.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown is a great player. My 4 is Drew Holiday. I love Drew Holiday. I love his defensive ability. I can't believe the Celtics got him. He is going to be huge in this series. I agree he's going to guard Kyrie. I also think maybe he could guard Luka. I'm interested to see if that happens. He's just that great of a defender that he can really guard anyone. I'm trying to remember, how tall is Drew?
Probably like 6'2", 6'3".
6'4", actually. Same as Derek White. But I'm interested to see what happens. But he is such a fantastic player. And defensively, he's amazing. Offensively, he can make some key plays. And he was a big reason why the Bucks won the championship. So that's why he's my 4.
Okay, who's your 3?
My 3 is Kyrie Irving. I was tempted to have Kyrie at 2, but looking back on it, Kyrie did not have a good series against OKC. He did make some key plays in the Timberwolves series, made some great plays. But he did falter in the OKC series, and he's going to have a really tough matchup with Drew Holiday, but he is incredible. So that's my 3.
Okay. My number 3 is also Kyrie. Kyrie's been a major part of this team. The way that Luka and him kind of switch off between being the great can score any way possible to becoming the second fiddle is pretty remarkable. It's not really something that happened with LeBron consistently enough for them to win multiple titles, and I know the Warriors got in the way of a lot of that too. But 49% from the field, 42% from 3 during these playoffs, while averaging 23, 4, and 5. Kyrie's remarkable. My number 2 is Tatum. I know you had Tatum at 5 or whatever, but Tatum is still Tatum. I know people like to hate, and he missed one shot. But again, if you're a Celtics fan, Kevin, you could bring up the free throw that Luka missed to lose a game against the Thunder. There is no player that is perfect in primetime moments. And this is a huge series for Tatum, and he knows it. This series defines his legacy. If he ends up losing this series with a team that has the 3rd best net rating of all time, only comparable to the Bulls 96-97 or 95-96 and 96-97 Bulls, and then the 2017 Warriors, it would be hugely detrimental. It's the difference between him looking like a Carmelo Anthony or a potential top 25 player all time by the time he retires. So this series is huge for him. And while he hasn't had the greatest playoffs so far, and I think Brown's played better this far in the playoffs, Tim's still averaging more points. He's still averaging over 10 rebounds per game, while also averaging 6 assists. He contributes more than just points. And like I've said before, this is a huge series. This is the most important series of his career.
Yeah, I agree. It's a huge series because he didn't really play that well in the last finals appearance. And that's why going over playoff performances, I know you brought up points. I'm going Jaylen Brown here. But it's these guys can flip flop. I think we've had this discussion of like who's really. I don't know if we can truly know who's the Batman and Robin of Jaylen
Well, the
Brown.
difference is that Brown does not contribute playmaking wise. Like I know that maybe he averages more points at times, but Tatum last finals averaged 7 assists per game, while Jaylen Brown averages 3.7. While Jaylen Brown didn't average 2 points more, it doesn't really matter when Tatum is the one who's actually facilitating the ball. That's what really separates them in my mind, is the fact that Tatum can actually contribute as a playmaker, while Brown can't.
Got it. What if I think the series could determine who's the Batman and Robin? Let's say the Celtics win, but it's behind Jaylen Brown pushing it. Would that
It
alter
depends
your
if
view?
Tatum is playmaking. I mean, Brown could average 2 more points, but if Tatum's still averaging 4 more, 5 more assists, I still don't know. It's really hard to see that just based on points. I think Brown at some times can be the better scorer. Sure.
Okay.
The better player is a different story.
Got it. Okay. So we've had a couple of disagreements, but I'm assuming we have the same one.
Lucas my one, Lucas your one. This would not have been true if he had 3 back-to-back bad series. I don't think I would have had him at 1, but I'll have him 1 here. It's a huge series in his career. Obviously not as important as it is for Tatum. But if Luka plays like he did those last couple games against the Timberwolves, it's going to be very, very hard for Boston to control him. We won't make any predictions here in this video, but Luka, while playing like a top 3 player in the world, is definitely better than anyone else in this series.
Yeah, and it looks like he's healthy or somewhat healthy. He's not hampered, and it's been incredible to see what he did in that big moment. Can he rise up to this big moment? I'm not really questioning that. I'm looking forward to seeing it because I think he will step up to it, but it's going to be a tough challenge, and we'll preview the actual series and make predictions then. That's all we got. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.